Hello and welcome to Cocktails with a Twist of History, your digital destination for all things cocktails. So, what do you do with a famous bar like the Waldorf Astoria bar room during Prohibition? As you can imagine, it was way too, quote, in the spotlight to become a speakeasy, so there really wasn't much to do other than sort of close it down. First, I want to pause here just to remind you to follow and to subscribe because it really makes a big difference for our channel. Prohibition was from 1920 to 1933, and the famous Waldorf Astoria bar was partitioned into other uses like a coat room and a humidor, which was really a letdown. They continued to serve non-alcoholic drinks and like club soda and cider to its wealthy clientele, but it wasn't the same. The hotel maintained its reputation and hosted events like music and theater, but the famous bar space was effectively shut down. I was looking at a bar book from the Waldorf Astoria from 1933. This was when the bar was trying to win back its reputation. The skills of the craft mixologists were mostly lost at this point. The book was like a beginner's guide. It explains things like the shaken cocktail and says, quote, except when stirring is needed. Also, they had to list the glasses for their fancy cocktails. There was a section called pre-war cocktails, and in 1935, this would have been talking about World War I. So I have been talking way too long without a drink in my hand. Let's make a drink from this cocktail book. There was a drink called the ZaZa, which it says stir. It's a gin cocktail which specifically calls for Plymouth Gin, which is sort of a category of gin in and of itself. Let's make a ZaZa cocktail. We are going to need 2 ounces of our Plymouth Gin. Here we go. And it is a stirred cocktail, so I have my stirring glass. There we go, our full 2 ounces. It actually says a little bit less, and it's equal parts gin and this thing called Amaro, which is a bittersweet liqueur. But whenever I call for this stuff, I always use a lot less. So I am going to use a ½ ounce of Amaro. And here we go. And we have ½ ounce of Amaro. Amaro is a very overpowering liqueur, so I really just use a little bit. And then I am going to have 2 dashes of orange bitters. And here we go. 1 and 2. Now we need our ice, and we are going to stir. And here we go. We have our ice over here. Come on. It's not cooperating there. All right. We have our ice. All right. Okay. We are going to do it like this because it's not cooperating. Obviously, if you're making it for your friends, don't do that. Here we go. Let's stir. This does not really need a lot of stirring. It just needs some dilution, and it just needs to get chilled. Here we go, just a few stirs there. We have our strainer, and we are going to put it into a standard martini glass. And here we go. Now, I am going to garnish this with a grapefruit peel. Not probably typically what they would have used. Probably would have used an orange peel or more likely even a lemon, but we are going to use that. And let's try it. Cheers. Ooh, very nice. The Amaro takes over, but not too strong. And the gin comes forward. The orange, probably could have used a little bit more orange maybe, but very, very good. Delicious cocktail. So it was, like I said, originally it was a equal parts gin and Amaro, For me, I always find that's way too much of the Amaro, which is very, very strong. The Amaro they were calling for was something called Calisaya, which is also a bitter, sweet flavor, as they all are. The original one was made with quinine bark and something called Seville orange extract. As for the cocktail, in 1935, ZaZa was a popular play, really an opera, and the opera was done by a guy named Rodrigo Leocavallo, and it premiered in the year 1900. It was very popular in Paris, which the wealthier crowd in the Waldorf Astoria probably would have seen in Paris. When I first saw the cocktail, I thought they were talking about ZaZa Gabor, who was well known at the time, but she was not really prominent in the Waldorf Astoria, considering that later on she married Conrad Hilton, and Hilton and the Waldorf were competitors. Also in 1935, she was not yet a tabloid queen. So she probably was not who they were naming this cocktail after. Anyway, as always, if you know more pieces of the story, we want to know about it. You can put it in the comments, you can email it to us, or you can tell it to the bottle. We want to know. Also, please remember to like. We want you to subscribe. We want you to follow and send a link of this show to other people so that they can enjoy cocktails with a twist of history. Thank you.